I wanted to talk about this because a lot of you out there who are listening to this program know I'm born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. And I live here now in the city of Nashville doing this national radio show, which has grown into Colossus. Appreciate all of you out there listening in all 50 states. I went to grad school at Vanderbilt. Went to law school at Vanderbilt. Also got an MFA, my Master of Fine Arts. So I went to 5 years of grad school at Vanderbilt University. Met my wife there. I think it is one of the greatest colleges or universities anywhere in the country. I absolutely love Vanderbilt University and everything that Vanderbilt represents. And so Vanderbilt on Sunday during this game, the Titans won against the Colts. Vanderbilt put out the news that they were firing Derek Mason. And Derek Mason had been at Vanderbilt, is in his 7th year. Good dude. I like Derek Mason a lot. Very fond of him, but had not won enough. 10 SEC football wins in 7 years as the head coach at Vanderbilt. Even that was not enough for Vanderbilt. They're 0-8 this year. And so they made the decision to fire him. And there are a lot of different coaches out there, I think, that are interested in getting this job. But what was interesting about this to me was the timing that Vanderbilt followed to fire Derek Mason. In particular, and you probably didn't miss it because it was everywhere, on Saturday, Vanderbilt had a female kicker, a goalie for the soccer team, came on the field and kicked the opening kickoff of the second half. And it went viral, and it got a massive amount of attention. And the goalie on the soccer team, I don't begrudge her making the decision to kick for the team. I understand why she would find that to be a really attractive opportunity and an important message to send and all of those things. And I certainly understand how it became a big story. But what I'm surprised by, and frankly, I know I shouldn't be surprised, but I was disappointed about, is, look, the way college football in the NFL works is after every game, we all go back over the games. And by the way, her name, Sarah Fuller, is the kicker. We all go back over the games, and we basically Monday morning quarterback everything that took place in the game. And so what I was really surprised by is no one was able to say anything other than this is the greatest moment in the history of college football. That's what it kind of felt like on social media. And I was watching this live because I watch college football all day on Saturday, and I'm a double Vanderbilt alum in the grad school, so I probably watch it more Vanderbilt than your average person does, certainly. And what I was really surprised by throughout this entire story was no one pointed out that Vanderbilt had a punter who was their starting punter and was able to play, and there were no issues whatsoever with him, right? In fact, Vanderbilt's offense was so bad, you could argue, and I think you could argue it fairly, that this punter, Harrison Smith, was probably the best player that Vanderbilt had on the field for the entirety of the game. And he kicked 7 punts, all right? And so I want you to think about this for a minute. If you kick the ball 7 times and you do an average of 43.3 yards per punt, and 2 of those are 50-plus yard punts, you're a pretty good kicker, right? And I think everybody out there would agree that it's tougher to punt than it is to kick off a football. By which I mean, in order to punt, you have to field a snap, you have people rushing at you, you have to drop the ball, and you have to perfectly kick it. And that's a lot of different challenges. And then you have to be capable of making a tackle as well in the event that the punt returner is coming in your direction. If you can do all of that, why was the punter not the choice to kick off? Why was this idea that Vanderbilt didn't have a kicker allowed to take root and nobody said, wait a minute, they've got a punter? And let's take it out of college football. This happens pretty regularly in the NFL because the NFL has limited rosters. And so there's no backup field goal kicker on the NFL roster. If your field goal kicker gets injured, usually the punter comes in to kick extra points or to attempt any field goal. Not because the punter is a great backup field goal kicker, but just because NFL rosters, there aren't enough players on the sideline to have a backup field goal kicker. And by the way, if your punter injures himself, then your field goal kicker would usually handle any punts that might have to happen for the rest of the game. That's pretty commonplace in the NFL. So I watched Sarah Fuller, this female kicker, kick the ball to start the second half, and she was kicking the ball with somebody kneeling, holding the ball, and she kicked it directionally right at the 35-yard line so that somebody had to kind of smother the ball there. But Vanderbilt was down 21 points, and they started off the second half with a kick that guaranteed the opponent the ball right at the 35-yard line. If that had happened with a male kicker, people would have said, man, that was an awful kick. So this felt like, to me, a stunt that was designed by Derek Mason to try to make it more likely that he was going to be able to keep his job. Because this idea that Vanderbilt had nobody else who could kick is just transparently false. They have a punter who was a pretty good punter and able to punt the ball 7 times for Vanderbilt. And you're telling me that punter couldn't have walked out and popped the ball up in the air as a free kicker to start the second half with the kickoff? You're telling me he was unable to kick the ball 35 yards into the air and do the exact same thing that this female kicker did? That's just not true. And some people out there are going to be like, oh my God, how dare you say anything negative about this story at all? That's sexist of you. That's the first thing people will say. Oh my God, that's sexist. But I don't buy into that at all. If you are a fan of college football or the NFL, you question everything that coaches and players do, particularly if they lose a game. Why did they run that play call? Why did they try a field goal there? Why didn't they go for it on 4th down? These are usual conversations that every single person out there listening to me right now has about their favorite team. And yet I didn't see anybody else in the media asking, wait a minute, why does Vanderbilt claiming they need a kicker when their punter is fine and he's able to punt the ball 7 times in a game? And you're telling me this guy couldn't kick off to start the second half, but he was capable of coming on the field and fielding a punt 7 times and bombing it down the field? It's a stunt. And again, I don't blame Sarah Fuller. I'm not saying she did anything wrong, but this feels like, to me, clearly a stunt if you actually look at all of the data. And I sometimes feel like, if you listen to this show, you know I say this all the time, I feel like the world has gone insane, and I look at the facts and I'm like, how am I the only person saying this? And I think the Vanderbilt football team was thinking it, because I've watched them play all season, and that's the worst performance they've had all year. And then they fired Derek Mason the next day. I don't think all that's a coincidence. I think this is connected.